The town of Valjala, or rather the meeting place, back then, in the beginning, already existed in the 5th and 6th centuries. Back in the day, it had easy access to the sea through the river, which is a few hundred meters away in what is now a swamp area. Still, there were no fortifications here in those times. In the 8th and 9th centuries, in the early Viking Age, another ring fort was located 700 meters away from here. It was a small, also circular, with stone and wooden enclosure. However, it was abandoned already during the Viking Age. And a new fort was erected on this site. Its 3 concentric circular ramparts were similar to the same kind of forts on the island of Öland in Sweden. It's anyone's guess who took inspiration from whom. In any case, it seems that the prehistoric islanders of Saaremaa communicated with islanders of Öland perhaps more closely than previously thought. During the golden age of Valjala, in the 12th and 13th centuries, there was a magnificent stone fort here, and the lower part of its ramparts are still preserved. But the ramparts, as you see them today, date from the later period than the 13th century. In fact, at some time, about a meter thick layer of clay soil was piled on top of the early earthen rampart of the fortress. This was taken from right here, from the foothills, from the area of the former surrounding lower town. It can be assumed that the town around was abandoned before the fort. After all, it was still possible to flee here when enemy troops raided Saaremaa, and during the 13th century this happened on several occasions. Eventually, the fort was abandoned as well. Maybe it simply was no longer needed. A few more decades passed, and the stone walls slowly began to crumble. It was around this time that the last earthwork, the outer side of the current ramparts, was piled up. An additional earthwork was needed so that the timber fortifications could be erected on top of the ramparts, next to the crumbling stone wall. The same was done also for the outer perimeter rampart. Earth was piled on top of an old stone wall, and a log fence was built on top of that. When? Most probably in the middle of the 14th century. There is a possibility that this last fortification of Valjala fortress was connected with the uprising of St. George's Night in the years 1343 to 1345. According to the chronicles, to defend themselves against the invaders, the islanders built a strong circular fence made of logs and an impregnable log fortress inside it. In 1344, the forces of the Teutonic Order succeeded in breaking through the outer circular fence, killing many of the people behind and inside of it. However, they didn't achieve desired victory and were forced to retreat. The central fort remained unconquered, but they did succeed in capturing Vesse, called the King of Saaremaa, who was fighting there. As the enemies couldn't harm the islanders enough, so the uprising ended not with a full surrender, but with a compromising treaty. But, however, the fort had to be demolished. Where was this fort described in the events of the uprising? According to the descriptions and recent archaeological research, it seems most probable that it was right here in Valjala. Perhaps you are standing on the very spot where almost 700 years ago the defenders of the fort stood, watching helplessly from their height as their king was demonstratively executed by his enemies.